So, not at all. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. My brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you all in our second session in studying Al-Muqaddimah Al-Aajuroomiyah, the book that is considered the stepping stone towards studying Arabic grammar. And like we mentioned previously, this is a very blessed book. A lot of khair there is in it, so much so that the ulama would say, if you study Al-Aajuroomiyah, that would be enough for you to protect yourself from any form of misunderstanding and misspeech. You'll be able to understand the bulk of the Arabic language that you come across. So alhamdulillah for blessing us with this opportunity to embark on this mission. In the previous chapter, in the previous session, we covered al-muqaddimat. Al-muqaddimat, the introductory notes, the introductory ideas that are necessary for studying any field of knowledge, starting with its name, the purpose for why it was designed and made at the beginning, the person who started this field of knowledge, and so on and so forth. We covered all of that. And today, bidnillah ta'ala, we go to chapter number 2 of the book, which is Arabic Grammar, Al-Aajuroomiyah, Speech and its Types. In the previous class, we started speaking about speech and what it is and what it contains, but we will tackle this from the beginning of the chapter, inshallah. And again, these chapters, as Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala says, these are easy chapters, very, very easy. Just give me 1 second, let me double check that this is working as it should. Yes. طيب, as Imam Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala said, is this working? Oh. As Imam Ibn Uthaymeen said, and agreed upon with all other scholars, as you will also find yourself, that studying Nahu is about tackling the first 4 chapters of Nahu. In Nahu, in Al-Aajuroomiyah, you will see there's about 12, 13, 14 babs, chapters, sections. All of them are piece of cake. If you master the first 4 to 5 chapters, if you master that, everything else is easy. So the first chapter in today's session will be tackling this topic, the topic of what is speech. Al-Kalam. Al-Kalamu wa anwa'uhu. Speech and its types. So the author, Ibn Al-Aajuroom, rahimahullah ta'ala, here, he will be speaking about the types of speech in terms of its components. So when you look at something we classify as speech, one, how do we classify it as speech from a Nahu perspective, as Kalam from a Nahu perspective? This is to suggest that Kalam something may be called kalam in other fields of knowledge that may not be called kalam in Nahu. In the terminology of the scholars of Nahu, what can be called kalam is specific. Right? So this is what we're going to study, al-kalam. And its types in terms of the components of every word that is within a statement that we can call kalam. Does that make sense? So this is what we're tackling, two things. Al-kalam, what is kalam from the perspective of the scholars of Nahu? Why is this significant? Because as people of Nahu, as scholars of Nahu, as specialists of grammar, before we are given a sentence to analyze, right? This is what you're going to be doing. When you read the Quran, you're going to read the kalam of Allah, one sentence at a time. And what will you be doing? You will be analyzing the sentence. For what purpose? For the purpose of understanding it, right? So as a student of knowledge, as a student of grammar, your objective ultimately is to understand the kalam of Allah. So you will be given a statement from the Quran, a statement from any book of the scholars of Islam, and you would hope that you will be able to read it and understand it. But before you are able to understand it, you need to be able to do grammatical analysis. You need to do what? Grammatical analysis, because through the grammatical analysis, you'll be able to tell a lot of information will be revealed to you through the grammatical analysis. Is that clear so far? So you will get a sentence that you read. If you are in an assessment will be given, a statement will be given to you, a sentence will be given to you, and you will be told, do grammatical analysis for it. Okay? So as we study Nahu, why do we ask you to do grammatical analysis? To train you so that when you are reading the book of Allah on your own, you are able to do grammatical analysis and therefore understand what you're reading. That's the whole idea. So for you to be able to do grammatical analysis, before you do that, you need to understand, you need to be able to tell if what you have in front of you, is it kalam? Is it kalam or is it not kalam? Is it, as far as you're concerned, as far as grammar is concerned, is this kalam that can be studied, that can be analyzed or not? Is this point clear? As we were studying grammar in primary school and secondary school, this whole notion of why do we study Nahu wasn't made very clear to us. We assumed that we do grammatical analysis. The Arabic word for grammatical analysis is i'rab. You do i'rab. You do i'rab because a test or an exam will be set 2 months, 3 months from now, and you will have to answer well, and you will have to pass the exam. Grammatical analysis is for you to be able to almost like spell a sentence, spell it. You know when you learn phonetics, you learn how to make the sound a, ba, b, and a. You learn these ones separately, and then when you have a word, you read them phonetically, right? And then once you've read it phonetically in segments, then you put them together, and you can read the word as a whole, right? So grammatical analysis, or i'rab, as we will see, inshallah, as we can call it in Arabic, is basically taking a kalam and then using that kalam to analyze it grammatically, right? For what purpose? For what purpose? To understand. If you do wrong analysis, you may be thinking that something is a subject when that thing is an object, and then you get the whole thing wrong. Right? So the first step now is to do what? To understand what is kalam. So he's going to tell you now, let's study what is kalam. So in this sentence here, as you can see, where is my cursor? My screen, I've got like 1,000. Okay, you have this sentence here. Al-kalamu huwa al-lafzu al-murakkabu al-mufidu bil-wad'i. As we will see later, inshallah, we will analyze this one. You will see this can be shortened into just 2 words later on, inshallah. But he says kalam to begin with. What is speech? kalam. And now we just called it speech, right? In English. But from now on, I would expect you to understand, we will just call it kalam. You can speak in English all through, but when it gets to the part that is clear for you, you say it al-kalam. Kalam is blah, blah, blah. So what is kalam? Kalam, قال هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع. You have to get used to this. You'll get definitions. And definitions will have clauses within them. Every clause acts like a filter, right? Act like a filter. So when you want to assess if something fits that definition, you'll put it through the first filter. If it passes, then you put it through the second one. If it passes, then you put it through a third one. If it passes the final one, then it is definitely part of that definition. These clauses, they will filter out anything that is not kalam, anything that does not fit that definition. So get used to this in Nahu. Every time you get a bab, a chapter, a section in this book, it will begin by by definition, defining something, and then you'll understand what falls within that definition and what is filtered out by that definition. So he says here, al-kalamu huwa al-lafdhu. اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع. 4 filters we have here. 4 filters. To start with, he says رحمه الله تعالى أقول, in his explanation, he says أقول للفظ الكلام معنيان. كلام has 2 possible meanings. كلام has 2 possible meanings. أحدهما لغوي والثاني نحوي. The first one is kalam from a generic linguistic sense, something that anybody will agree with, not specific in the field of knowledge of nahu, right? So he says this is called lughawi. So far as the language is concerned, what is kalam? After that, we will tackle what is kalam from the perspective of scholars. So we have 2 things here, lughawiyun or lughatan, and we have nahwiyun or nahwiyan, or you have istilahan. We covered the word istilahan. So every time you define something, we will see what would the average person in the street use it for, the word kalam, and then what would grammarians use it for. قال أما الكلام اللغوي, here, as for speech in the linguistic sense, you get this part here? As for speech in the linguistic sense, it can be defined as عبارة, فهو عبارة عما تحصل بسببه فائدة. Something that is beneficial, meaningful. That is kalam. Al-kalam from a linguistic point of view, not within Nahu. Anything that can be beneficial, anything that transmits and communicates information is kalam. It doesn't have to be in the field. It doesn't have to have any specification. He says, an expression through which a benefit is obtained. A benefit. Right? And now capture the word benefit or fa'ida. Fa'ida means benefit in general. But since we are studying Nahu, we are concerned with meanings. So fa'ida here means a benefit in terms of meaning. It gives meaning, right? Not benefit in the general sense. Benefit in terms of meaning. It gives which a benefit or a meaning is obtained from. An expression through which a benefit / meaning is obtained. We have a meaning out of it, irrespective of whether the expression is verbalized or not. It doesn't matter whether it is vocalized, verbalized, if it's uttered or not, it's still kalam. Such as scripting, like writing, like gesticulation, like using gestures to indicate something. قال سواء كان لفظا أم لم يكن كالخط, like drawing lines. والكتابة, writing. والإشارة is to point and gesture with your hands. These things are kalam in the language point of view, from the linguistic point of view. But nahu, they will have a more narrowed down meaning of what kalam is. قال وأما الكلام النحوي, فلا بد من أن يجتمع فيه أربعة أمور. As for كلام from a نحو point of view, فلا بد أن يجتمع فيه أربعة أمور. It is compulsory, it is stipulated that it has to have four characteristics. الأول أن يكون لفظا. The first one, he says, number one, this is number one. Number one, it must be an oral utterance. It has to be لفظ. لفظ. لفظ in itself, as a word, it means something that is spat out. When you spit something, you choose something and you don't like the taste of it, and then you want to spit it out. This is called لفظ. لفظ. Right? But then they use that to spit out words. Right? So لفظ that is spoken through the mouth with sound, that is conditional. The first condition for a kalam to be considered as kalam from a nahu point of view. Number two, it must be compound. This is number two. Number two, it must be compound. What does that mean? Yeah, consisting of more than one. Consisting of more than one word. It must be, number three, because one word does not communicate anything. You know, if somebody tells you chair, what meaning did you understand? Nothing much. Right? Number three, he says it must be something which is comprehensible. Right? أن يكون مفيدا. It must be something that conveys a meaning. This is to say, you can have a phrase consisting of more than one word, so it fits the first condition. It's uttered, and it's more than one word, but in terms of meaning, it doesn't convey any meaning. For example, I could tell you things like if we go in English. Okay? If we go. This is consistent of more than one word, huh? But is it meaningful? It's not. So it's uttered, and it is compound, consisting of more than one word. So it passed the first two filters. But the third filter, is it meaningful? It didn't fit that. So it is not kalam. So saying, if we go, this is not kalam. Unless somebody can understand something from it. Are we going to eat? And then you say, if we go. So by the context, it makes sense. But otherwise, if it's just by itself, it doesn't make any sense. طيب. So that's number three of the conditions. For it to be comprehensible. أن يكون مفيدا. طيب. Number four, it must be established in the medium of the Arabic language. Meaning it has to be words that are used by the Arabs. Right? Because speaking in English or in Persian or Indian, right? It can be something that is uttered, goes through the first filter. It can be something that is meaningful. It goes through it can be compound, goes through the second filter. Number three, it can be meaningful. It passes through the third filter. The fourth filter is what? It stops it, because that's not Arabic. Right? Saying the book is beneficial. This is a sentence. This is a kalam, right? But not as far as people of nahu, people of Arabic grammar is concerned. This is not kalam. So it passed through the first three filters, but not the fourth one. Right? This fourth condition, which is الرابع أن يكون موضوعا بالوضع العربي. طيب. This أن يكون موضوعا بالوضع العربي. The scholars of Nahu have differed as to what does that mean exactly. أن يكون موضوعا بالوضع العربي. A lot of scholars are of the opinion I just stated now, meaning it has to be words used by the Arabs. It cannot be language of other words of another language. That's the more popular opinion. Another opinion, which is very relevant and I think is more pertinent to Nahu than this, is to say that this has to be something that is intended. Intended. It has an intention behind it. Right? because meaning is all about intention. بالوضع, meaning it has to be uttered by somebody who has a meaning to communicate, right? If it's spoken by somebody who's, for example, sleeping and they are speaking gibberish, they are just talking, you can't be given that statement and you are told do i'rab for that, because, and listen to this, your ability to do i'rab is dependent to a great extent to you having a good enough understanding of the meanings intended behind it, as you will see. Right? If you have absolutely no idea what the person means, if you are totally clueless, you might struggle with the Arab. Right? I'm going to expand on this a little bit. So if you are the one speaking, this one, طيب, I say, if you are the one speaking, then before you create your sentence, you will be asking yourself, what is my intention? What do I want to communicate, right? But if somebody else is communicating to you, right, you will find that there are instances in which you may be confused as to how to do the grammatical analysis because you don't know the intention of the other person, the speaking person. Because sometimes the meaning of words can be dependent on what do you mean, what this person means. So when we do our grammatical analysis, obviously, most of the time we are going to do grammatical analysis for words said by another person, mainly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Right? And the ulama, when we read their books and their works, if it's your work, if your intention, you know how to do the Arab for it because you know the intention. But when it comes to somebody else speaking, get used to saying that there are two possibilities of doing Arab for this sentence because we don't know what this person's intention is. And that is why in the Quran, in the tafsir, and sometimes in the hadith of Rasulullah, you find scholars have differed in opinions. Why is that? Because they say, so far as Arabic is concerned, there are two possible ways of understanding the sentence. It can be understood this way, or it can be understood that way. Why can't they be conclusive? Because we don't know the intention of the person. We're trying to find out what the person wants from us, right? That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he wants from us. What is he saying to us? We want to find out, huh? So what they do, they say this sentence, in terms of its structure, it can have two possible grammatical analysis, right? It can be this and it can be that, and therefore we have two different opinions. Is this point clear? Right? So intention matters. So therefore, when we speak, the way we will phrase our sentences, this is going to be clear because we know what we're talking about, right? But when it comes to somebody else's speech and we are trying to analyze their words, be prepared that in 80% of the time, it will be easy and straightforward. You can figure out what's going on. But there will be this portion, this percentage of the time where you will be given a kalam that you can say it depends on the person, what they want to say. It is not conclusive as to what is the meaning behind it. So here in this book, we are saying أن يكون موضوعا بالوضع العربي. أن يكون موضوعا. In the definition, Ibn Ajroom, he says بالوضع, not بالوضع العربي, بالوضع. But in the commentary of the commentator, the sharih of this book, Muhammad Muhyiddin Abdul Hamid, he says الوضع means بالوضع العربي, by the placement of Arab, by the usage of the Arabs. That's his interpretation, and that's the popular opinion. Another opinion is that بالوضع meaning as intended by the person. As intended by the person. So a drunken person, for example, you can't do analysis, grammatical analysis or Arab for their speech. A little child that's speaking gibberish, for example, you can't do i'rab for them. A sleeping person that is just speaking while they're asleep, you can't do a grammatical analysis. This is in short to say what? Our ability to do grammatical analysis for a sentence is greatly dependent on the intention of the speaker. We need that. We need to have a little bit of insight as to the intention of the speaker. And here, so now, as we have explained these four words, are they clear to you? So what are the four filters for something that can be called nahu from a grammarian or from a grammatical point of view? It has to be lafz. And I mentioned this previously because when we analyze, we're not analyzing written sentences. We are analyzing sounds. So whatever is sounded has to be explained. And whatever is not sounded, we're not concerned with it. Right? And I gave you example last time with the tanween. Tanween. Right? Ja'a Muhammadun. Ja'a Muhammadun. Right? This tanween is written in the form of shakl in when we write it. Right? It's not a letter. It's not a word. But because it's sounded, because we sound it out when we speak, then we have to mention it in our grammatical analysis. Okay? And I also mentioned to you a certain alif that is called the alif al-fariqa, an alif that comes in front of a waw. Waw al-jama'a. Don't worry if you don't catch this, but there's a little alif that is written like similar to the word, to the K in front of no. You know, that K differentiate between now and no, right? How do you differentiate between the two? The K, so it's silent, but it helps you to differentiate between two words, right? Likewise, there's this alif called the alif al-fariqa that comes in front of wow, two types of wow. What does it do? It helps you when you read, it helps you understand that this wow is of a particular type, right? But because it's not uttered, it's not spoken, do we do grammatical analysis for it? No. So you can be given a sentence that has that alif in front of it, in front of a wow, and then you will not be concerned with it. Why? It's written, yes, but it is not uttered. We only concern ourselves with sounds that are uttered. A question comes here. Why then do we have everything in writing? Like now, we are looking at something in writing, when Nahu is only concerned with sounds. Why do we have things in writing when everything is in sound? Huh? It's just easier for study purposes. So to study Nahu, we have to write things down. But otherwise, when it comes to analysis of sentences, we are analyzing what? Sounds. Just bear that in mind. So he says lafdun, and then he says murakkabun. Right? Murakkab means compound, consisting of more than one word. Either so one word. If you tell somebody qif, right? Qif. What does qif mean? Qif, yeah, stand up, or stop, right? Or kuffa. Qif, let's say stand up. Qif, stand up. One word. Is this kalam? Yes, it is kalam, but because there's an understood you, there's qif anta. Qif anta. There is an understood anta in it. So we will assume that al-muqaddar kal-mawjud. That which is estimated is as if it exists. So we consider qif, the sentence qif, consisting of how many words? Two. Right? One word malfuda, one word that is uttered, one word that is muqaddar. Right? So that's when we say murakkab, it has to be murakkab, consisting of more than one word. But I just drew your attention that sometimes you might have a word, one single word, a sentence consisting of one word, but because there's understood another word is understood to be next to it, it's seen as compound. Number three, it has to have meaning to it. It has to have meaning. Some ulama, they said, if it is beneficial, then it must be compound. Right? If it's beneficial. Number three, the condition number three, it has to be meaningful. It can only be meaningful if it's compound. So they say the compound one is redundant. We can do without it. Right? And that's why they said that we can say, if it's lafz al-kalamu, they said if it's lafz, we can say al-qawl al-mufid. Qawl, uttered. Al-qawl, something that's uttered is qawl. Al-qawl al-mufidu, that is which beneficial. And they felt that these two words is sufficient to define nahu. But you took the four words and now you understand them very well. Who can tell me why a sentence like when the sun rises, just assume that this is said in English. عندما تشرق الشمس. This cannot be grammatically analyzed. Why? Exactly. It leaves you wondering what else. There's more to it. There is a conditional statement. When the sun rises, what? So even though it consists of more than one word, but it's still not meaningful. This also prepares you in the Quran. You may come across something like this, right? And in kuntum sadiqin, in kuntum mu'minin, if you are believers. And that's when the verse ends. Have you come across something like this? If you are truly believers, if you are true believers, and the sentence ends. Is that kalam?
It's connected to what comes before.
La, conditional statement, they have to the result of the condition has to be after the condition. So since this kalam is definitely meaningful because it came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to assume that the answer to that condition is understood. Right? Meaning, if you are true believers, you will do this. So you will do this is omitted because it's understood. That's what Arabs do. When something is obvious and understood, they find it disarticulate for one to bring it in when it's already understood. Right? So this is beneficial. So you can have in the Quran a compound word, a compound number of words together that are not fully meaningful at first sight, but it's in the Quran. So therefore you will assume that it must be a meaning. There must be a meaning, and therefore there is an omission. Right? So all these meanings, subhanAllah, when you look at books of tafsir, you'll find what they do, they just fill the gaps for you. And if you are a student of Nahu, you will realize that this tafsir did nothing other than fill the gaps for me, which I could have done myself if I studied Nahu. Right? طيب, this paragraph here, ومعنى كونه لفظا, ومعنى كونه لفظا is something that I have already covered with you now. So we've covered this. I'm not going to go word for word for what the book is. I've already explained that to you. ومعنى كونه مركبا, and the meaning of it being compound. Right? This paragraph. قال أن يكون مؤلفا من كلمتين أو أكثر. I've already explained this to you. Right? He says here, فالكلمة الواحدة لا تسمى كلاما عند النحاة. One single word is not called kalam, so far as scholars of Nahu are concerned. So far as grammatical analysis is concerned, it's not called kalam. إلا إذا انضم غيرها إليها, except if another word is added to it. إلا إذا انضم غيرها إليها. right? Meaning, except one word can only be seen and may be considered as a kalam if another word is added to it. And then he added here, سواء أكان انضمام غيرها إليها حقيقة أم تقديرا. He says, what is that? Whether the addition of another word is literal, meaning uttered word, or understood. If something is added literally, meaning with sound, or implicitly understood. So a word that is understood implicitly is considered as an existing word. He says, for example, if somebody tells you, من أخوك, who is your brother? And then you just say, Muhammad. Muhammad is one word. But what's understood from Muhammad? Muhammad is my brother, or my brother is Muhammad, right? So that's an example of a word that stands by itself, but it is not one single word. It's understood to have a completion to it, but because the context conveys that meaning, the omission of that understood meaning is acceptable. طيب. So this sentence we covered this already. ومعنى كونه مفيدا. This is something we can just one word. We say one word or two about it. معنى كونه مفيدا. What's the meaning of us saying it has to be beneficial? Remember, he said مفيد. What's the word I told you that مفيد means? Literally, مفيد means beneficial. But in this context, what does مفيد mean? Adds a meaning. It has to have a meaning. It has to present a meaning. What we mean by that, he says, أن يحسن سكوت المتكلم عليه. For it to be considered reasonable, acceptable, for one to stop at the end of that kalam. If one can stop at the end of that kalam and a full meaning will be conveyed, then this is مفيد kalam. أن يحسن سكوت المتكلم عليه. This means that the listener is sufficed with what he hears and does not require any further information. So the person listening to you will understand, and he will not be inquiring, asking for more information. Right? Is that clear? Huh? And the rest of it is something that we've already covered. طيب, this paragraph here. ومعنى كونه موضوعا بالوضع العربي. The meaning of us saying it has to be placed by the usage or the use of the Arab. Placed by the Arab. We've explained this, and we said there are two meanings. Both of them are acceptable. The first one, the most popular one, is that it has to be spoken in the Arabic language. But one that is not any less important, another opinion, is that it has to be intended. It has to be intended. So that is the definition of kalam. And now he gives you here أمثلة للكلام المستوفي للشروط. Examples for a kalam that fulfills all four conditions. Okay. This book is beautiful in the sense that it's translated, right? So it saves you from having to go through the dictionary and understand the meaning. الجو صحو. الجو صحو. الجو صحو, what does that mean, anyone? The weather is clear. The weather is good. The weather is clear. صحو means clear. There's no clouds. The weather is clear. الجو صحو. And I want you to pay attention to this full stop. This is basic punctuation mark for any language. Full stop, what does it mean? One complete, comprehensive meaning is conveyed, and that's the end of it. Right? الجو صحو, full stop. البستان مثمر. البستان means the garden. مثمر is fruitful. So the garden is fruitful. meaning the trees of the garden is full of fruits. Okay? That's an example of a meaningful sentence. Al-hilalu sati'un. The crescent is bright. Al-hilalu sati'un. You notice here, how many words do we have in front of us? Al-hilal, which means the crescent. And then we have the word sati'un, which means bright. But then when we interpret it, when we translate it into English, what did we say? The crescent is sati'un, is bright. So how many words do we have? Three words, huh? We said the crescent, the word the is the al in al. But what's added there is. Pay attention to this, because you will need it in your translation. 2 words in Arabic is translated into 3 words at least in English, and it has a meaning that we will highlight inshallah at a later point. As-sama'u safiyatun. Again, the skies are clear. Safiya. As-sama'u. Sama here is the word for what? Skies, huh? Or the heaven, but here it means the skies. Safiya means what? Clear. As-sama'u safiya. The skies are clear. And so on and so forth. I will not go through all of this. This is something you can go on your own time, inshallah. But you got the idea. These are examples of sentences that fit all 4 or fulfills all 4 conditions. And look at us here. We are pointing at something written, and we are calling it kalam, only to demonstrate and to illustrate. But reality is, if somebody was to give us this word written, and if we were to be pedantic, we will say, I don't do i'rab for this. It has to be uttered, and then I will be able to do grammatical analysis for it. But this is only a means for learning and understanding. طيب. Here in the following paragraph, this is the translation with the sentences above. The weather is clear, the orchard is fruitful, the crescent is shining, the sky is clear, and so on and so forth. So he goes and gives you example of أمثلة لللفظ المفرد. So these are examples for things that do not fit the filters. So capture the word al-mufrad. Al-mufrad. Al-mufrad here means the opposite of what? Compound. Singular. Or more single words rather than singular. Singular means 1 as opposed to 2 and 3, right? So you have singular and you have plural. But al-mufrad here, it doesn't mean singular as in 1. It means a single word. A word that stands by itself. The word itself could be plural. It could be, for example, rijal. You know what rijal means? Men. Men is plural. But from this perspective, from the perspective of, is it compound or not compound? We say it is murakkab or mufrad. It's mufrad even though it means what? Men. It's single word as opposed to compound word. Right? So I think here singular is a misinterpretation, is a mistranslation. It should be examples of single words. Mufrad, that is the opposite of plural. Is that making sense? You will see soon, inshallah. The word mufrad can be 2 things. The word mufrad can be 2 things. Can be mufrad, that is the opposite of murakkab, which is what we are tackling here. So murakkab, these are technical words. You have to memorize them. Okay? Technical words that you will be able to memorize them, even though you may say that I have not memorized everyday words طيب. But that's fine. You can begin by learning technical words. طيب. So مركب is a technical word that you will need throughout your journey in studying نحو. مركب. مركب means what? Compound. طيب. The opposite of مركب is what? مفرد. Right? And therefore we said this word here is a mistranslation. It should be single as opposed to singular words. Because singular is when we speak about number. When we speak about number, we have mufrad, muthanna, and jam'. We have singular, dual, and plural. Does that make sense? Please do not hesitate to ask and stop me. If you don't understand anything here, this is your time. Clear? So these are examples now. He's going to give you examples for words that are singular, and hence they are not sentences, they are not kalam. Do you see what this section of the book is doing? He's giving you examples. In the previous section, he gave you what? Sentences that fit the definition, and therefore we can call them kalam. Now he's going to give you examples for words or sentences that do not fit our definition. He began with al-mufrad, Muhammad, full stop. Is that kalam? Muhammad is the name of a person, but it's not kalam so far as Nahu is concerned. Ali, the same. Ibrahim, طيب. Qama, got up, not kalam, unless it's in a context, then that's something else. Min, the last one here. Min, it means from. It's meaningless when it's by itself. طيب. Now, moving on from mufrad, he gives you al-murakkab, something that is murakkab, أمثلة للمركب الغير مفيد, but something that fits the second sentence, the second filter, being murakkab, compound, but it fails the third filter, غير مفيد, not beneficial. الغير مفيد. طيب. For example, he says to you, مدينة الإسكندرية, the city of Alexandria. Now, this is a compound. Does it mean anything? It means nothing. So we can't attempt any i'rab for this. No i'rab for this. If we find such thing in the Quran, what do? We will assume that there must be an implicit completion of the sentence. Yeah? This is called تقدير, نقدره, كلام محذوف مقدر, part of speech that is omitted because it's understood. It can be calculated. Abdullah, for example, Abdullah, the servant of Allah, the name. Right? It means it's not a kalam as far as we're concerned. Hadramaut, a name of a place in Yemen. لو أنصف الناس, if people were fair, for example. If people were fair. Is it meaningful? Not meaningful. And so on and so forth. So this is what he's giving you examples at this point of the book. These are أسئلة على ما تقدم. It will be good if you guys can look after this and answer the questions, and come at the beginning of every class and ask me to have a quick look at your answers if you have any questions at them. But they should be straightforward. Al-kalam, basically he wants you to bring the definition. ما هو الكلام? And then he asks you, so that's the first question. ما هو الكلام? Okay. A proper translation here would have been, what is kalam? Because kalam now is a technical word. So we cannot be interpreting technical words. So rather than saying what is speech, would have been better if they said, what is kalam? In Nahu, the word speech means nothing to us. Okay? What is technical word for us is al-kalam. So the proper question here would have been, what is kalam? And the answer for that, al-lafdu al-murakkabu al-mufidu bil-wad'i. Would be an amazing idea if you can run this in your tongue. You don't have to actually memorize it, but run it a number of times until the sentence becomes clear to you. ما معنى كونه لفظا؟ طيب. What is the meaning of it being a لفظ or an utterance? What does that mean? Anyone? It has to be audible. It has to be spoken words, not written, not in any other form. It has to be spoken. Very good. ما معنى كونه مفيدا? What is the meaning of it being beneficial or it being meaningful? Yeah, if the speaker stops at the end of it, the listener will not be requiring any more details, right? Will be content that a message was delivered. Yeah, that is what كونه مفيدا. What the meaning of it being beneficial? That's what it means. It means the listener would have received the message and is clear about it. Another question here. ما معنى كونه مركبا? What is the meaning of it being مركب? Again, مركب now is a word that should be translated or a technical word, right? So what is the meaning of it being مركب? More than one word, right? More than one word. What is the meaning of it being بالوضع العربي؟ ما معنى كونه موضوعا بالوضع العربي? What is the meaning of it being placed in the medium of the Arabic language?
Arabic words.
It has to be in the Arabic language. Yeah.
Has to be intended.
It has to be intended. So we combine the two meanings together. And we say the intention here, he did not mention it in his book, but other scholars of Nahu mentioned it in their books. Now he tells you here, مثل بخمسة أمثلة لما يسمى عند النحو عند النحاة كلاما. Give 5 examples which would be considered as kalam by the grammarians. النحاة. النحاة again is a technical word. What does it mean? النحاة. نحوي. نحوي is a singular. Plural is نحاة. نحاة means scholars of نحو. He sometimes will say العلماء, the scholars. And since we are studying نحو, he must be speaking about the scholars of نحو. It would be amazing if you can write 5 English sentences, basic English sentences, and then look in Google Translate, and see the translation of each word, even a sentence, right? And bring up the 5 equivalent 5 words. So 5 phrases, 5 sentences, meaningful sentences in English, and then bring the equivalent Arabic to them. Right? If you run out of words, if you don't have words, if you have the word Arabic words, just write them down. If you don't, use Google Translate. And don't think that this is too much work. Language is about involvement. The more involved you are in the language, the quicker you will understand it, the sooner you will be able to capture the words. If you come across the word easily, like how I present you with certain words and I give it to you in a golden plate, chances are you're not going to retain that word until you engage with it. Like now, alhamdulillah, you are engaging with the word, for example, nuhat. How are you engaging with this word nuhat? You are hearing it from me, right? You are looking at the screen and looking at the word nuhat. So that's another sense involved in this learning. But if you can add to it, so how many senses so far? Your eyes and your ears are involved in capturing this word. You can add to it your hand. Writing in the session, like you can write the word an-nuhat, and you know that you're going to throw that scrap paper later on. You will throw it away. It doesn't matter. But the fact that you wrote it enhances your chance of retaining that word at a later time. If you can add a 4th sense to this, is by you saying the words. If you can get into the habit of, when I say words in the class, say it under your breath. So if I say an-nuhat, you say an-nuhat within your low voice, and just run it, and that will increase your chances of retaining the word. But what will be more significant, if you do some research, if you do some effort in learning something, your brain will be more likely to retain it because it has worked hard to get it. So look online, look at websites that translate things, look at an app, and in your journey for understanding the Arabic language, you need to have an app that's a dictionary or online or whatever. Be friend with one application that you'll become familiar with. أنواع الكلام. طيب, so now we covered what speech is, and I think we'll have to, time is up, right? We will have, so we still got have one, alhamdulillah. طيب, أنواع الكلام. The types of speech. The types of speech. Who can tell me why is studying the types of speech is relevant? The worst thing for you to study in anything you study is for you to not understand the point of studying this. Why would this topic be relevant? Yes.
Subject matter.
Huh?
Subject matter of Nahu. Arabic.
Is
It's made up of.
exactly. What are the type of kalam when he speaks here, he's speaking about the components that make up kalam. So inside of the kalam, we said it's a compound, huh? It has to be consistent of more than words. So if we look at that, what are the possible types of words that fall within a speech? This is what he's talking about here. So, and then later on, at the end of this, inshallah, we will be also looking at another type of anwa' al-kalam. Anwa' al-kalam, when we have a meaningful sentence, they have two generic types. I will mention them at a later time. But now here he's speaking about, write down, he's speaking about the components inside of a kalam, something that fits our definition of a kalam, the component words that makes that compound, what we can classify them with. Like the classification of words. Why do we need to classify words? Why do we need to classify words? So we see the types of speech, we can put equal to that in front of it. The types of words in a kalam. Like this is what we're studying. What are the possible types of words within a kalam? This section is going to be speaking about this. Why is this important? Why is it relevant? Huh?
That's what we said previously, right? To categorize them,
Uh-huh.
and we're able to define what they are, to know the stuff.
Exactly. So when we say we will do a grammatical analysis, what does that involve? Ultimately, as we saw in the previous session, we want to know what is the ruling, what should be done to the end of that word. Remember, grammar is about the end part of a word. What should we do with the end part of that word? That is called the ruling, al-hukm al-i'rabi, al-hukm al-nahwi. So there's ahkam, there's rulings, huh? But these rulings are different depending on what type of word we're speaking about. Right? So in order to arrive at the ruling, for you to know what you should do with certain words and what one word should have at its end, first you need to understand what category does it belong to. Is that making sense? Sufyan? Is that clear? طيب, قال وأقسامه ثلاثة. قال وأقسامه ثلاثة. And he said, and it's divided into three groups. Its categories are three. أقسامه ثلاثة. Its categories are three. The categories of words within a kalam. So whenever you look at a sentence, a meaningful sentence, and you look at each word has to fall under one of possible three categories, divisions, or whatever they call them, classifications. The first one is what? Ismun, that's noun, yeah, noun. Fi'lun, and that's verb. وحرف جاء لمعنى. You can see my mouse. Let's see. طيب. You see what I'm pointing, صح؟ وحرف جاء لمعنى. So اسم is what? Noun. فعل verb. حرف means an article or a particle. طيب. A particle. You know what particles are in English, huh? حرف جاء لمعنى. جاء لمعنى that is brought to convey a meaning. That is brought to convey a meaning. This is as opposed to, they call them حروف المعاني, the letters of meanings. Right? The letters, the حروف of meanings. You have a حرف when you say كتب. You know what كتب means? كتب, what does it mean? Wrote. كتب محمد, what does it mean? Muhammad wrote. بالقلم. بالقلم. So that B, the ba, is one letter. Right? Does it have a meaning? What does it mean? With. So since it has a meaning, then we consider it as something we study as scholars of Nahu. Right? But when you look at the word kataba, kataba, what does it mean? He wrote in the past tense. So we have how many letters? The kaf, the ta, and the ba. Kataba. Now each one of these letters is alphabetical letters that are used to make words. Does the kaf by itself have meaning? When we say kataba, kaf by itself, it doesn't convey any meaning. So this is called harfu mabna. Harfu mabna, meaning a letter that is used to construct a word. Harfu mabna. Let's use this page. You can see my screen. Harfu. So the example I just gave you now. كتب محمد بالقلم. Yeah. كتب محمد بالقلم. Yeah. So this is the harf we're talking about here. Can you see this harf? This is called harf. It's the ba. Do we study this? Yes, we study this. Even though, and pay attention to this, even though it's a single what? Letter. But when it comes to grammatical analysis, we will look at this one letter and we will call it a word. We will call it a word. Right? Why? Because it's something we study. This is a word as far as Nahu is concerned. So if you were to do grammatical analysis, you will take this word separately and you put a colon in front of it, and then you will write few words here to grammatically analyze it. Right? And then you will take the following word, this word. Right? Muhammadun, and you will write something in front of it to grammatically analyze it. And then what you will have after that? What will you have after that? Huh? B, or you will have التنوين. التنوين, صح? You say Muhammad, that's one word. Then you say dun. That's a word. We need to say something about it. What is it? And then we have B, we call al-ba'u. Al-ba'. And then we'll say a few things to grammatically analyze it. Right? Why do we, even though it is a single letter, why do we do grammatical analysis for it? Thank you. Because it has a meaning. It has a meaning. Remember, Nahu is all about extracting meanings. We want to know the meaning, and we can get to the meaning if we are able to grammatically analyze it. So anything that has meaning, we are concerned with it. Anything that has no meaning, we're not concerned with it, right? And that's why we also took at this tanween here, because it has a meaning, right? It has a meaning. Inshallah, we'll tackle that in the right time. And then I said to you, if we were to take this word, how many letters does it consist of? 3 letters. Let's take this one by itself. If we take the first letter, this one here, kaf, is this a word? That's not a word, right? Why? Even though it's a letter, but this letter here is a word as far as we're concerned, and this letter here is not a word. The difference between them is one has a meaning by itself, and the other one does not have a meaning by itself. Is that clear? So going back to this one, he says, when we look at words within a sentence, every word within a sentence has to fall under one of 3 possible categories, nothing more than that. اسم, فعل, حرف جاء لمعنى. Right? And we said that they classify this one into حروف المعاني, right? وحروف المباني. So we have حروف المعاني وحروف المباني. طيب. So we have 2 types of حروف. حروف المعاني and حروف المباني. المعاني حروف that are pertaining to meanings. And other type of حروف that are pertaining to construction. المباني, meaning letters that are used to construct words. So when we looked at the letter here, ka, this is حرف معنى or حرف مبنى. حرف مبنى. طيب. حرف معنى or حرف مبنى. So we have حرف معنى وحرف مبنى. طيب. حرف معنى وحرف مبنى. طيب, take this hint that will benefit you when it comes to reading. You see this wow here? What does it mean? And in nicely written and books, they will indicate to you that this wow is and it's not part of a word by not giving it haraka, by leaving it like this, even though it has fatha. So as a non-Arabic speaker, this will be a good hint that will benefit you, because you would want to take a word and put it in a search engine to look for the meaning of it. But if you take the whole thing with the wow, you get confused. So if they put the wow to you without fatha, this means that's and, not part of a sentence, not part of the word. So حرف معنى, what does it mean? حرف معنى mean a letter of or pertaining to meaning, that comes with meaning. حرف مبنى meaning a letter that is for construct the sentence. So kaf here is حرف مبنى or حرف معنى. مبنى. حرف الباء حرف الباء here, الباء المكسورة, is it حرف معنى or حرف مبنى? حرف معنى, because it comes with a meaning. So he says اسم وفعل وحرف جاء لمعنى. You're clear about this? قال, so this here is the speech of whom? This line here. Huh? That's Ibn Ajuroom speaking. قال, يعني he said, Ibn Ajrum, أقسامه أقسام الكلام. أقسام الكلام. This statement here, you need to elaborate on this one because this could be interpreted in so many ways. It means the category of its components, not its category as a whole. If we were to look at its category as a whole, we will have it is جملة اسمية or جملة فعلية. Right? But this is its category in terms of its components, the category of its components. You write something here, right? Because otherwise you'll be thinking that there are two different of kalam, one kalam called ism, one kalam called fi'l. No, the components within it. And this paragraph here, there's nothing new in it, but still I recommend you read it. It will be at least for the practice of the language, but there's nothing new here. Except I would add something. How did the scholars arrive at this conclusion that kalam is, or the components of a valid kalam is one of three possibilities, three possible categories: اسم وفعل وحرف جاء لمعنى. How did they arrive at this conclusion? Huh? By examining all the material they found. So the scholars of Nahu, they took all, remember I told you in the previous class, they looked into everything that was accessible to them at the time when they felt that the Arabic language is being watered down, is being changed, is being tampered with by the inclusion of non-Arab nations into the Muslim world. They started to see the language itself started to change. So they felt that now we need to urgently capture everything that is said and spoken in that time. And then they said, we will leave categorization for a later time. Now let's just capture everything. So you have scholars who just captured everything. And then after that, when they looked at their the material that they got in their hand, they examined them and they agreed that every word you can have within falls under one of three possibilities. That's the majority and of scholars of Nahu. استقراء. Where did you come across this word? Okay, how الاستقراء؟ طيب وذلك عن طريق الاستقراء. الاستقراء means to look into a body of text and to make conclusions. So الاستقراء meaning to read between the lines, if you like as well. To look into a body of text and make conclusions. That's what الاستقراء is. Now he says أما الاسم فهو في اللغة ما دل على مسمى. Now again look, as for الاسم, so he's going to take them one category at a time. الاسم فهو في اللغة. It is from a linguistic point of view. From a linguistic point of view, that's where we always begin, so linguistically. The noun, he says, in the linguistic sense, is defined as that which indicates towards something named. Something named. The name of it is called ism, right? ما دل على مسمى. That's in the generic sense of the Arabic language. Now, في اصطلاح النحويين أو النحويين. في اصطلاح, in the agreement or in the convention or in the terminology of the scholars of Nahu. اصطلاح النحويين. كلمة تدل على معنى في نفسها ولم تقترن بزمن. It will be ideal if you can memorize this. طيب. كلمة, because definition, remember we said نحو is about what? Categorization, تقسيمات, وتعريفات, definitions, then rulings. So now we've categorized at the beginning of this chapter into ism, fi'l, and حرف معنى. Now we're going to do what? Definition for each one of them. So that's a definition. He says that this here كلمة دلت على معنى في نفسها ولم تقترن بزمان. This is the definition of ism. Ism is a word that indicates to a meaning in itself, meaning it can stand alone to convey this meaning. It can stand alone. As you can see later on, we will have the word, the harf. Harf has a meaning, but it cannot stand alone to convey a full meaning, right? Whereas ism, you can just say the word, the ism, and it will give you some form of meaning, complete, without being reliant on other words to support it. So, في نفسها, what does it mean? In itself, without the need of support from other words. Write this down, because this word is في نفسها. This meaning is significant. كلمة is a word, كلمة. Follow on the screen, كلمة. A word. دلت على معنى في نفسها, indicates to a meaning. في نفسها means by itself. By itself. Or in itself. And this clause here will filter out harf, as we will see later on. Okay? So now, how many categories do we have? 3 categories, right? So be mindful that in the definition of each one of the categories, you will have clause that will filter out the other 2 categories. Does that make sense? So we have 3 possible categories. What are they? Ismun, وفعل, وحرف. So if you were to define ism, you have to have in its definition clauses that will filter out fi'l and harf. So when we say كلمة دلت على معنى في نفسها, what are we filtering out here? Harf. Because harf, as we will see inshallah in a second, is a word that indicates to a meaning. It has a meaning, but not by itself. Right? Rather, it adds this meaning to another word that is able to stand by itself. So this part here, this clause, the first clause in the definition, it takes out the harf. It filters out the harf. Yes. Huh? So kalimatun, I mean, you'll have it translated in the paragraph below, but I'll do that. Kalimatun is a word, dallat, that indicates to, ala ma'nan, to a meaning, fi nafsiha, meaning in itself, meaning without the support or the need of a support of another word. It can stand by itself and it will have a meaning. Yes, it will not make a sentence, but it has a meaning, right? Like we said earlier, when we use the word, when we use this example here, كتب محمد بالقلم. What is the meaning of the word be? With. So if I take the word Muhammad, what's the meaning of the word Muhammad? It's the person called Muhammad. The person called Muhammad. Right? Do we need any other word to support the word Muhammad to indicate to this person? No, the word Muhammad is sufficient to indicate to that person called Muhammad. But what about be? Can I say to with? With means nothing by itself. But if I say with the pen or wrote with the pen, then that will begin to give meaning. So with here was only meaningful when it's attached to kataba, wrote with, and when it's attached to al-qalam, it needed the support of the word al-qalam for it to be meaningful. With the pen, right? With the pen, by the aid of a pen, right? And it was still not meaningful until we attribute that to kataba, wrote with the pen, right? So here we say al-ism is a word, kalimatun dallat, that indicates to a meaning, fi nafsiha, in itself, by itself, i.e. without the need of a support from another word. Right? قال, the second clause here, ولم تقترن بزمان. ولم تقترن بزمان, and it is not associated with time. It's not associated with time. With this clause, what are we filtering out? فعل. فعل is a verb, is an action, and an action has to happen in a time, either in the past, present, or the future. So if it's a word that has the connotation of time, then it cannot be ism, right? If it has the connotation of time, it is fi'l. If it doesn't have a connotation of time and it has a meaning in and of itself, then that is ism. So the definition ends here. وَلَمْ تَقْتَرِنْ بِزَمَانٍ. Is that clear? This is super important. It's very basic, very simple, but super important, because we are going to build on top of this. Okay? So if you're not clear about this, you will get confusion later on. Okay? قال نحو محمد علي ورجل جمل نهر تفاحة ليمونة عصا. All these words are asma. Okay? They are not kalam. They are components of kalam. Each one of them has a meaning. Right? And then what do? Listen to this. We bring these words together and we'll see what is the overall meaning that we will have as a result of putting them together. And we will see the influence of these words on one another. Is that making sense? So now we are saying that each word has a meaning in itself, but it's still not kalam. Right? When we add it to other words that has their own individual meaning, we put them together and we have the overall meaning of our kalam. Clear? He says here, فكل واحد من هذه الألفاظ يدل على معنى. Each one of these ألفاظ meaning كلمات. اللفظ معناها الكلمة. Get used to this. He will bring this a lot. فكل واحد من هذه الألفاظ يعني من هذه الكلمات يدل على معنى. It indicates to a meaning. وليس الزمان داخلا في معناه, and it has no time connotation to it. Right? Ali is Ali. He was Ali in the past, Ali in the present time, Ali in the future. Has no time connotation to it. Muhammad the same. A chair, a camel, Jamal. Right? Therefore, considering the definition, these are asma. أسماء فيكون اسما. طيب. This is the translation of what we just covered. وأما الفعل فهو في اللغة الحدث. الفعل, the second category. In the linguistic sense, it means an event, an action, an occurrence, right? Something happening, right? That's what فعل is from a linguistic point of view. في اصطلاح النحويين وفي اصطلاح النحويين in the grammatical sense or in the convention, in the terminology of the scholars of Nahu, كلمة دلت على معنى في نفسها is a word that has a meaning in and of itself, meaning it by itself can convey a meaning, right? An individual meaning without the need of a support of another word. واقترنت بأحد الأزمنة, and it is associated. اقترنت means associated, coupled with. واقترنت بأحد الأزمنة الثلاثة, with one of the three tenses, the past tense, the present tense, and the future tense. If that is what you have, then these are what? فعل or أفعال. Yeah? Is the definition of فعل clear? And again, you can see how many clauses does it have? Two. So why do we have two? One to filter out one of the other categories, another one to filter out the third category, sorry. Right? When we say كلمة دلت على معنى في نفسها, what's filtered out by a word that indicates to a meaning in itself? What's being filtered out here? الحرف. طيب. واقترنت بأحد الأزمنة الثلاثة, and it's coupled, associated with one of the three tenses. What is being filtered out with this clause? The ism. Is that clear? نحو, like the word كتب, for example. The word كتب. كتب is a verb. How do we know? It has a meaning in itself. Right? Now pay attention to this. Very, very important notion here. Now look at this word, kataba. Right? If I ask you, what's inside here? This composition, what's inside, what's encapsulated in this one word? You will tell me two things. Number one is the meaning of the verb, the action itself. The action devoid from time, right? And then the second component is the sense of time. So two things are underneath or encapsulated in the word kataba. What do you have? What inside of it? What do you have inside of it? Huh? The act of writing. So the act of writing is one component. The second component is the past tense. Right? Now the act of writing is called kitaba. Kitaba. Right? And it's very important to understand that the kitaba, the masdar, is inside of kataba. The masdar is inside of kataba, as well as the past tense. طيب يكتب, which is here. يكتب. You can see it. I'm pointing at it. يكتب. What does it mean? It's the same word, but in the present tense. يكتب. So what do we have inside of the word يكتب? Two things. The act of writing still is there. Right? It is in both of them. In addition to the present tense. The present tense. Right? So the al-kitabatu is inside of both of them. Al-kitab. Kataba yaktubu kitabatan. The masdar, the third tasrif, kataba yaktubu kitabatan, is actually the verb without the connotation of time. Right? طيب. So do you see why, if I go back to this one here, nahu kataba, do you see why this is a fi'l? Okay. This is clear to you. One, it has the meaning in and of itself. What is the meaning it has inside of it? Huh? The act of writing. ومقترن بزمان, زمان الماضي, past tense. Okay. So that fits the definition of fi'l. And the same thing with yaktubu, with the same thing with uktub. Uktub. Uktub means what? Write. It's a command. It's an imperative verb. Uktub means write. You command somebody, you instruct somebody to write. Uktub. Does it have the connotation of, sorry, does it have the meaning? Does it have a meaning? What is the meaning it has inside of it?
Right.
To write. The act of writing. So this meaning is present in all three of them. The act of writing, the act of writing, that's the meaning. So when we say it has a meaning in and of itself, that's the meaning that it has. The act of writing. And then it has the connotation of yani commanding and the future tense. When is it supposed to be written? Not in the past, not in the present, but after the speech. So in the future. طيب. فأكتب is also a fi'l because it has these two conditions. Is that clear? Anyone confused? Like these ideas, even though they are very, very simple, but they are the building block for what's to come in the future. ومثل هذه الألفاظ, he's going to give you other examples. Get used to the word ألفاظ here. He says ألفاظ, and he means by that كلمات, plural of كلمة. نصر وينصر وأنصر. أنصر. كتب, the first one was كتب يكتب أكتب. صح? Now you have نصر ينصر أنصر. The meaning is he helped, he helps, and help. Do help somebody. Yeah? فهم يفهم وافهم. افهم. So understood, understands, and do understand, like a command, and so on and so forth. علم يعلم وعلم وجلس ويجلس ويجلس. By the way, these words are not advanced words, so you might as well use them as your vocabulary builder. Build on the vocabulary. He's going to mention the most relevant words. طيب, we'll stop here بإذن الله تعالى. Now he's going to speak about the three types of فعل. Again, which is basic, so not a big deal, but we'll stop here. So far as categorizing words, like, so far as categorizing words into اسم, فعل, and حرف. Is this clear to you? And we said حرف is two types. Who remembers what they are? حرف مبنى and حرف معنى. The plural of that is حروف المعاني and حروف المباني. What is the definition of اسم? A word that has a meaning in and of itself. What does that mean? In and of itself? It doesn't need the support of any other word to communicate that one single meaning, right? And it was, what's the second clause in the definition of ism? It's not associated with time. It's not bound with time. In Arabic, we say ismun kalimatun. Al-ismu kalimatun dallat ala ma'nan ولم تقترن بزمان. كلمة دلت على معنى ولم تقترن بزمان. فعل, on the other hand, what's the definition? فعل, a word that indicates to a meaning in and of itself, meaning without the support of anything else. It can communicate a meaning. It is associated with time. It's coupled with time. Very good. And finally, حرف. We haven't covered this one yet because he's going to speak about the types of أفعال. We'll continue from that next week, inshallah. But حرف, you can work it out. Right? A word that contributes to the meaning of another word. A word that contributes to a meaning of another word, and it has no time connotation. Right? But we'll cover that next week, بإذن الله تعالى. Continue reading, inshallah. Do read, come to the class, having read, inshallah. And do as much exercise as possible from the book. MashaAllah, there's a lot of examples. Having said that, let me give you this observation. A lot of people, they say Nahu is about practicing. Right? It's not about practicing. You can understand a grammatical rule with one example, one single example. Right? So practicing on other examples, it will just make sure it will train you. But understanding the principle, what do you need? One single example. Right? Al-kitabu mufidun. That's enough for you to understand the concept of jumla ismiyah, for example. Right? If you have further examples, that's an addition. That's an exercise for you. I say this not to put you off practicing, but I don't want you to be thinking that understanding grammar in itself requires excessive amount of studying, excessive amount of yes, exercise helps a lot, but the principles are so simple that one single example will suffice, inshallah. طيب, we'll stop here. بارك الله فيكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. نشهد أن